It's been a hot summer for a big chunk of the U.S., and as our planet continues to change, we're going to see more and more areas where we're going to have extreme heat that is going to last longer as well.
Yes, and so what do? When it gets hot, you crank up the AC or find anybody with an AC to cool down. However, not only will it drain your bank account, air conditioning units, they also release what's called HFCs, which are very potent greenhouse gas.
But we have some good news.
Okay.
It's not all bad here on Pattrn. There is a way to keep people cool without harming the planet. Liam McCabe from Consumer Reports joins us to talk about the heat pump. Now, we have one colleague here, Molly McCollum, who has a heat pump. So we recently have learned
We've learned a lot about
that not a lot of people have heat pumps in the U.S. So what is a heat pump versus what is an air conditioner?
Well, hi, thanks for having me, first of all. A heat pump is basically an air conditioner that can also heat your house. They're very similar. They have most of the same parts. There's one small difference that lets it run backwards in cold weather and collect warmth from outside your home and move it inside.
So this seems to be a common topic just probably within the past couple of weeks. Do you think this industry is trying to change and put more heat pumps in houses rather than a regular HVAC system?
It looks that way. I think the industry would be happy to do it, I would guess, because most of the manufacturers that make air conditioners also make heat pumps. So it's not a huge change for them. And then more importantly, a lot of governments and utility companies are starting to incentivize people to install heat pumps instead of air conditioners.
Why are they more eco-friendly than an air conditioner?
Well, it's on the air conditioning side, on the cooling side, it's actually identical. Like there's really not much difference on that side. On the heating side, that's what matters. They use far less energy to deliver the same amount of heat as like a furnace or a boiler or electric radiators.
Can these heat pumps work? I'm thinking of like the deep Texas freeze. Would they be able to survive a really harsh cold snap and keep you warm?
For the most part, they should be able to. There are cold climate heat pumps that are tuned to work well in really cold conditions. There are a few exceptions, like if you're in northern Alaska or sometimes in northern Minnesota or Maine or North Dakota. It does get too cold for like a few days at a time for the heat pump to be able to work on its own. But what a lot of people do is they'll also keep a furnace or boiler backup. And just have it switch on when the temperature drops below a point where the heat pump can't work or where it's more economical to.
How hard is it to go from an AC to a heat pump? And are you getting any initiatives with the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, so installing a heat pump is the same thing as installing an AC for the most part. If you already have an AC at your house, you can put a heat pump in the same location. They'll have to change out the coil indoors as well, but it's very similar. And in the Inflation Reduction Act, there are a few new incentives to kind of push homeowners to install them where they might have installed an AC instead. There's a tax credit, and then in a few years there will be rebates that are much larger, but we're not sure exactly how those are going to be rolled out yet. So
going back to our own Molly McCollum, who has a heat pump. She had to get it replaced and had a lot of problems finding
someone that would do it.
Was that just a rarity, or is it a little more difficult to find a
provider?
I would say it depends on where you live. So in the South, heat pumps are already common. About 1/4 of households in the South already use heat pumps, according to a survey that Consumer Reports ran a couple of months ago. Up north, it's not nearly as common. I'm not surprised to hear that your colleague maybe had trouble, but now that they're becoming so heavily incentivized, I think it should become easier over time. Like the installers are going to go where the opportunities are, and there are a lot more opportunities to install these things now.
Are the AC bills cheaper with a heat pump versus the AC?
So strictly speaking, if you have, let's say, an AC with a SEER of 18 and a heat pump of a SEER of 18, that's a measurement of their efficiency, it would be the same bill.
Okay.
What happens is a lot of people have low efficiency air conditioners, but when they get a heat pump that can also heat, the ones that heat well also tend to be more efficient during the summer at cooling. So in that case, your bills would shrink a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, if anybody's in the industry, or maybe you're building your house right now and trying to think what you want to put through.
Or if your air just went out and you need a new one. Real quick before you go, though, do they cost about the same price?
Yeah, to buy a new one?
If you get one for warm weather, it's a little bit more expensive than an AC, but you'll make it back on your heating bills pretty quickly. In colder climates, they're more expensive. It's not uncommon to pay $20,000 for one.
Whoa.
Yeah,
It's a lot of money, but it's up there. But where I live in Massachusetts, there's a $10,000 incentive to install one if you throw away your furnace.
Well, that's cool.
And there's more to come, more like that to come, and the federal bill should help with some of that as well.
Sweet.
Liam McCabe, Consumer Reports.
Thank you.
You taught us a bunch of stuff. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, you could spend $12,000 on a new HVAC system.
Yeah,
So if you have the $10,000 rebate,
That'll
helps.
help you a lot too.